president says help is on its way. What kind of help are we talking about?
Well, that's part of our challenge. I have no idea, neither do you, and neither do the Iranian people. President Trump used his favorite tool, tariffs. He just announced he's imposing 25% tariffs on anyone who does business with Iran. And I appreciate that he is speaking out in support of the protesters in Iran. But I wish, with equal force, if not more, he were speaking out on behalf of the Democratic opposition in Venezuela, that he were supporting those who were duly elected in the last Venezuelan elections and who had their elections stolen by Maduro. Look, President Trump ran in 2024 on a few simple things: lowering people's costs, making America healthy again, releasing the Epstein files, and avoiding new foreign wars. And in all four of those, I think he's headed in the wrong direction. Tariff is his favorite word.
Is that where we're going in Iran?
And it's hard to predict
Senator,
where he's going with that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. He's already, of course, struck Iran once. That took place last year. What targets would be justified in this case, and would that mean a war with Iran?
That's a great question to which we in the Senate don't have a great answer. The American people deserve to know which war Donald Trump wants to start next, which country he wants to put our service members at risk in order to confront. The strikes that he ordered against Iranian nuclear sites were carried out flawlessly by our armed forces with no injuries or losses to the American service members who were involved, and that's a positive. But that's a very different thing from trying to punish the Iranian regime for killing protesters. There were specific sites, they had been targeted, and that particular action against the Iranian nuclear program had been planned and practiced for years. Where would we strike, and who would we hit, and how would we carry it out? This is exactly the sort of thing where previous consultation with Congress is called for. When we found out that they had been practicing for the kidnap, capture, and removal to the United States of Maduro for months, that made it clear that the senior administration officials who told us weeks before that that wasn't their goal, they were lying to us. And the Senate needs to be involved, because the American people need to be involved in the decision to put our troops at risk. Whether Trump's next target is Colombia or Mexico or Cuba or Greenland or Iran, we should be consulting more regularly, and the American people need to know the risks and the costs.
Senator, I want to shift here to your leading a bipartisan congressional delegation to Copenhagen on Friday. What will be your message to leaders there, especially with President Trump's message on Greenland right now?
The United States and Denmark have had a close and enduring alliance for decades. When the United States was attacked on 9/11, Denmark was one of the first countries to come to our aid, and when we went into Afghanistan, Danish soldiers went and served alongside Americans. On a per capita basis, they lost more Danish soldiers in combat than any other NATO country. So our first message is thank you. Thank you for being a good and trustworthy ally. Second, it's to explore what is possible in terms of our shared interest in Arctic security. And then third is to talk with business leaders and elected leaders in Denmark about the potential for greater, closer economic cooperation. There are Danish companies that invest in and manufacture in the United States. There are opportunities for American companies in Greenland and Denmark. This is meant to be a positive, friendly, respectful conversation that may stand in sharp contrast to some of the recent threats that put the Danish leaders on edge and that puts our long and close alliance at some risk.
I want to point to something you just said about how you will be talking to business leaders there. Do you think that some businesses will simply stop doing business with the United States right now with the rhetoric going on surrounding Greenland?
I think that's a legitimate concern. Look, part of what has made the United States the best place in the world to invest is our deep capital markets, the rule of law, and predictable monetary policy. Unlike lots of countries in the world, we've always been a country where the president can't weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his enemies, where contracts are not messed with or fiddled with by a president based on his whims or interests, and where the Fed sets an independent monetary policy based on economic data. All of that is at risk. And when you put the rhetoric about Greenland on top of it, I think we are walking into, because of President Trump's rhetoric and actions against Jay Powell, his threats against Denmark and Greenland, and his actions in our region recently, we are at more risk than ever of going into a recession because other countries will stop being interested in buying our treasuries or investing in our country and our economy.
What's your goal on this, Codell, Senator? The Danish PM says the future of NATO is at stake. Is that how you see it?
Think about what that means. One of our most trusted and loyal allies in NATO saying that the future of this alliance that has kept us safe and secure and prosperous for 80 years, that is a staggering prospect. So this bipartisan and bicameral delegation is going to present ourselves in Denmark and Copenhagen to say we appreciate you, we value the NATO alliance, we respect your service alongside American soldiers in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we want to lower the temperature and find a more positive way through this moment.
Well, we want to talk to you when you get back from this, Codell, Senator. I'll be deeply curious to hear how the message is received. Today, the message from the White House is about affordability. It's a domestic one. The president was in Detroit, as you heard us discussing. You probably saw some of his address. It was not unlike the one he delivered in Pennsylvania or the one in North Carolina. We spoke with your colleague from Massachusetts right at this time yesterday, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who, of course, has been talking a lot about affordability, and got a phone call from Donald Trump after she was criticizing his economic proposals in a speech at the press club. Senator, here's what she told us about that call.
I just want to say it was all about costs, about how we reduce costs for American families. And I've had proposals on the table for a very long time. Donald Trump has talked about proposals that would reduce costs, but so far hadn't lifted a finger to deliver. So for me, it's put up time.
So what should the president put up here, Senator? And did you ever think you'd see a day when Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump are working together to lower costs?
No, I didn't, and they aren't. To be clear, President Trump's tariffs have raised costs on housing and housing production, on groceries, on health care. His decision to allow the Affordable Care Act subsidies to expire at the end of 2025 is doubling health care costs for millions of Americans. His decision to slap tariffs on lumber from Canada and wallboard from Mexico is raising the cost of producing housing. And his tariffs on a number of critical inputs to groceries in the average American family are raising those costs. Yes, gas prices have come down somewhat. But if you look at the total basket of costs that determine affordability for the average American family, it's gone up, not down. And the major driver of that has been Trump's tariffs, not something that Elizabeth Warren agrees with or supports.
Senator, I do want to ask, though, when you hear President Trump talking about credit card caps, talking about housing affordability, do you think that opens the door for you to work more with your Republican colleagues on Democratic priorities?
I have been talking to several Republican colleagues about bills that might move in a positive direction, rolling back some of the tariffs that are adding to the costs of housing, finding ways to support and advance the bipartisan housing policy proposals that my colleague, Senator Blunt Rochester from Delaware, and others, including Senator Warren and Senator Scott on the Banking Housing Committee, are moving forward. Affordability is clearly on the minds of millions of Americans, and there are things we have to do to address it. But in some ways, the most important, right in front of us thing we could do is for the Senate to take up the bill the House of Representatives just passed with 17 Republican votes to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies and keep affordable health care affordable for millions of Americans. That's right in front of us, and that's something that President Trump could push Senator Thune to put on the floor of the Senate. It would pass.